Great to be here.
Okay, so you're in Utah,
Yeah, I sure am. I'm in Utah. Where are you guys at?
Kingman, Arizona.
Arizona. Yeah, I was a little confused about the time zone because Arizona doesn't have they don't have daylight savings time, do they?
Right.
No,
No, we
no.
don't.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
4 o'clock right here.
yeah. I heard they're about to do away with that altogether, like in every state.
Yeah, it takes an act of Congress.
Uh-huh.
They,
Yeah,
I think they've tried to do it before numerous times, and then for whatever reason, the whole purpose of it though was for farming. It's for like, and
uh-huh.
now that most of our farms are run through big business, like I don't know
Uh-huh.
what the it was so the
Yeah,
kids could work on farms and whatnot in the summer because they'd be out of school.
sure. I'm kind of neutral on the issue, you know what I mean? It really
Yeah.
doesn't make much difference to me. But some people have really strong feelings about daylight savings time.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What part of Utah are you in?
I'm in West Valley City. It's just outside of Salt Lake City.
Okay.
So it's still Salt Lake County. Yeah,
Oh, okay. Yeah. I've been to Utah's a beautiful state. I love
it
all the
is.
red rocks there and everything.
And
Like it's fascinating how different the desert states look.
low crime, good job market, and just everything about it. I love living here ever since I moved here from New York.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
What
yeah, I
part?
moved here. Huh?
What part of New York were you from?
I'm not from New York. I'm from New Orleans. But I was living in
Oh.
New York before this, and it was kind of towards the end of the pandemic, and I it was still mask mandates in 2022, and it was just really tough to live in New York. And I moved here, and it just seemed so. It was just like a breath of fresh air, so much freer and better, and people were not wearing masks, and I love it here.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, let's get right into this. Okay, and we'll start on this. What's going on, Snow?
Not much, MJ.
Okay, well, we've had a few authors on. Now
Okay.
this one should be interesting.
Uh-huh.
Charles David Black, author of How to Deprogram Any Liberal. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Can we start off? Can we get a little bit of your background? And then, secondly, why did you write this book?
My background, I guess you could say, I was kind of a political moderate, um, until 2020. 2020 is the year that really made me do a pivot. Before that, I was, you know, maybe even a little left leaning, kind of, on a lot of issues. I would vote Democrat, depending on the situation. And then 2020, and especially living in New York, that was the year that made me really pivot and say, I think that it just made me feel like liberalism is dangerous. And now in the book, on the title of the book, it's Deprogram Any Liberal, but that's really just a way to sell the book. The real truth is that if you read the book, I refer to these people that I'm trying to help as fallacy sufferers. Now, most fallacy sufferer is someone who prefers false information over truthful information. Most of them identify as liberals, but it's common for them to also identify as conservatives. So the cover of the book and the title of the book is maybe a little misleading because there are a lot of people who identify as conservatives who also need to be deprogrammed.
Okay, to be fair, yes, we both read the book and we were just like,
Yeah.
huh, what does this have to do with deprogramming a liberal? I mean, that was my takeaway from it.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Um, well, the basic theory is okay that there are certain people who favor false information over truthful information. And so, and I spent a lot of time researching Christian scripture. It's common for me. I'm one of those people when I experience a problem, I often like to turn to scripture and I like to try to find the answers there. After maybe a couple of years of researching this, I concluded that certain people who favor false information over truthful information probably starts with a fear of uncertainty. So if you are really terrified of uncertainty, then you might try to alleviate uncertainty in the quickest, easiest way possible, which is generally through false information. So over time and through repetition, some of these people are developing an actual preference for false information. Um, and Christian scripture gives us a lot of tools to help deal with false information, including the parables, like the parable of the wise and foolish builder. The wise and foolish builder, parables of the 10 virgins. It gives us a lot of tools to deal with uncertainty. And I think people who develop a healthy relationship with uncertainty can subsequently develop a healthy relationship with the truth.
Can someone get a question?
Well, yeah, because like with religion, I mean, I don't want to insult anybody or their beliefs, but
Mhm.
there's no scientific proof that what's in the Bible or what's been taught through the religion is how can those people not be considered like fallacy sufferers? Especially like in the Mormon religion too, isn't it like that it was invented by that Joseph Smith guy? Joseph Smith?
Sure. Well, in all fairness, most scientists do believe in God. So the idea of using science as a way to kind of discredit religion doesn't really hold a lot of water.
Can we define fallacy sufferers or what your definition of that is?
It's a person who has a strong tendency to favor false information over truthful information.
Okay. Can you give us an example of how a liberal has done that?
Um, yeah, well, look at all the evidence that's coming out about the COVID vaccine, and this new business with Anthony Fauci. They're discovering more and more evidence that the COVID vaccine, he suppressed information regarding other treatments that were effective in treating COVID, and and he did that so that he could declare a state of national emergency.
Well, I
So
mean,
that's
Wait a second. Wasn't Trump was still the president though. So how is
sure. Well, he was
he
taking
not?
advice from Fauci, and it was mostly liberals that really advocated for the vaccine mandates and
It
the
came
social
out under
distancing.
Donald Trump though, and Donald Trump himself got the vaccine.
yeah,
He got COVID, but he
Sure.
also got the vaccine.
and he also took credit for
Yep.
Operation Warp Speed, which fast tracked the
It fast tracked
Well,
the vaccine.
I think Donald Trump was wrong about the COVID vaccine, and I am a Trump supporter, but I do think he was wrong about the COVID vaccine.
Then yeah,
There's
but
more,
okay.
more
Yeah, and
evidence to
if you
support
that
that.
can be a matter of opinion, because I'm a person where I think you've only had like the first few shots.
first three.
I it is going to be September soon. I will get the next booster. I get it like the flu shot. I get the flu and the COVID one right at the same time. I mean, and I'm still here. I'm not saying
Sure.
anybody should have to get it. I wasn't for the mandates because mine was a little more selfish. I'm like, if you don't want to take it, I'll take yours.
Yeah.
I'm like, I wanted it.
As a matter of fact, a little backstory about us. The only reason that we got it as fast as we got it was the school district had a certain amount of vaccines, and some of the teachers did not
The
want to.
National Guard.
Through
The
the
National Guard
National
came
Guard.
up.
Yeah. So we were able to take the place of the people that
Yeah,
did
because
not
they
want
didn't want it. And I was like, let me get my butt down there. I want it. You know, if you guys don't want it, that's the good thing about living
Well,
in conservative America.
a lot of actuary studies. So there have been actuary studies that have shown that getting vaccinated actually increases the risk of death. And I mean, if there's one group of people who's good at predicting death, it's actuaries. And so people who got
What is
uh,
an actuary?
an actuary it's a person who it's a statistician that works for an insurance company, and they sell life insurance. So they have to calculate the probability that you're going to die based on a multitude of factors.
Like in Along Came Polly, was he a actuary? Ben Stiller?
I don't remember.
Because remember, he was always like, these are the risks, you know?
Yeah, I think he was an actuary. I think I do
Yeah.
remember that movie. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Along Came Polly. It was with Jennifer Aniston and Ben
Yeah.
Stiller, and he kept calculating risks. I think he might have been
Yeah.
an actuary, if I remember correctly.
Okay. That makes sense.
Um,
Okay.
but anyway, the actuaries came out and they said that in COVID, actually it increases the risk uh, of death.
COVID or the COVID
I mean, not
vaccine?
COVID, the COVID vaccine, the um, the mRNA vaccine.
Well,
So, so were people passing away at that time when we were getting 9/11 numbers every day about the amount of people that were dying? Now we can get into medical reporting and the
Sure, I think getting into medical reporting is a worthwhile discussion, because they were saying anybody who dies with COVID, they're going to list the cause of death as COVID, even though there might have been multiple factors contributing to the death. So the numbers that were being reported were inflated.
but if you don't like trust the science or the medical community, because then that would be them being, fibbing numbers or whatever.
Well,
Like, how is that not being
it's
like a
I think
fallacy?
it's important to put science into perspective. Science is not always right. It's very often wrong.
right.
I mean, there
Right.
was a time when you got sick, they would bleed you, and then you got sicker, and then I mean, there was probably centuries of people who died because medical science thought that bleeding them would make them better, and it didn't. And I think there are probably still things within medicine that there are probably still treatments that make things worse.
Is
So, I mean, and it's not science if you don't have peer review. Okay. In the case of COVID and the vaccine mandates, anybody who opposed, the COVID vaccines, anybody who endorsed the use of hydroxychloroquine, I'm sorry,
Chloroquine. Yeah. Hydroxychloroquine.
hydroxychloroquine, anybody that endorsed that, and the other one I think was ivermectin, if I'm pronouncing it correctly,
Ivermectin,
yeah.
the
or
horse
something like that.
warmer,
Any
dewormer.
medical professional that endorsed that was being suppressed. They were, being threatened that they might lose their license. There were a lot of medical professionals that endorsed those treatments, and they rejected the idea of the mRNA vaccines, and they were suppressed. And then we're supposed to trust the science when there's no peer review. Well, it's
but
not science if there's no peer review. So
but
by rejecting Anthony Fauci or rejecting the ideas of forced vaccinations, you're actually embracing science, because you're rejecting some kind of distorted pseudoscience that is devoid of peer review.
but science in its nature is meant to you make the best calculation that you can, and then you test that calculation, and it could be wrong, and that's why science is always evolving, in my opinion, on it. Now, did Fauci do everything right? No, no, I don't believe that at all. But I do think, in my heart of hearts, he had the best intentions in mind for what he was trying to accomplish at the time, where the coronavirus was just constantly like, what are we dealing with? And stuff like, yeah, going to the grocery store and staying 6 feet apart and wearing a mask, which he changed his wording on once they learned more. And I don't see where, personally, I had a problem with that because we did not know fully what we were dealing with at the time.
Well, yeah, that's kind of how I feel too. Like, it came out and it was like scary because it was killing people. I mean, we had refrigerator trucks at hospitals because they didn't have enough places to put all the dead bodies. But
Hmm.
it's like, so I think that, like, I don't know if it's just like the people who didn't agree with any of that of it. I mean, because I did, my ex at the time was like that, like just very against everything that was happening. And it's I don't know if it's like one of those like I told you, like we told you, like we knew all along, and it's just kind of like a confidence that it isn't really backed by anything, just on what how you were feeling about it. And um like that's why I didn't mind having to go through those things. First off, I was considered an essential worker, so I had to go to work anyways. I wasn't staying at home.
What
So
were you
I was
doing?
kind of like, well, I wanted to be protected. And I was like, I was just gonna listen to people who had gone to medical school because they know more than what I know anyways about health.
I think it's interesting that you brought up. There's two key points that science is, okay, science is never perfect. It's constantly evolving. All right, and you mentioned Fauci's intent. Okay, I think that's a key issue here. Is what was Fauci's intent? In your assessment, his intention was to help people. He was doing the best he could with the information that he had. Um, I respectfully disagree with that assessment, and I think that's what the courts are trying to determine right now: is was Fauci what was Fauci's intention? Um, what was his connection with the Wuhan lab? That there's a very good chance that they were. I mean, no, they were definitely engaging in gain of function research on the coronavirus. What was his connection of that? Did they achieve any gain of function on the coronavirus? Is that the actual source of the coronavirus? A lot of people believe it was. What was his intention when he supposedly suppressed information regarding the effectiveness of hydrochloroquine and ivermectin? Um, a lot of people are saying that his intention was that if they had an effective medication, he wouldn't be able to do vaccine mandates. He wouldn't be able to declare a state of emergency. I mean, these are all questions that are still before the court as we speak. And
But
Anthony Fauci
but
was called to testify. Okay.
to be fair though, Fauci cannot declare a state of emergency. That would be the federal government.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the federal government wouldn't have been able to declare a state of emergency either. Um,
So what do
that's
you,
that's 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 the accusation.
in your opinion, do you think that Fauci was up to something nefarious then? The like
I think he probably was.
this is what I'm trying, like, do you think that he was up to no good and like in on the vaccine or in on the whole COVID thing?
Um, that's. I mean, there are some things that I know. There are other things that I suspect. At this point, we know that hydrochloroquine and ivermectin were effective. We know that the vaccine is dangerous. We don't know whether, like you said, was Fauci in on it? Was he doing something nefarious? At this point, we don't know that. I
Do,
personally that he was doing something nefarious, and I think that he was in on, he was somehow benefiting from it financially or otherwise. And the reason I think that is because he was at the best vantage point to be able to ascertain the necessary information and determine the best course of action. And the decisions that he made were wrong.
okay. Can I ask you this? Was ivermectin peer approved?
It had been peer approved for a lot of other similar viruses,
But for COVID,
and no, well, the debate surrounding the usefulness and effectiveness with regarding COVID was kind of on the rise, and then it got suppressed. So it didn't get. I mean, I guess you could say peer approved is kind of a squishy term. There were a lot of healthcare professionals that endorsed it. They said they used it. They used it effectively. They had data from patients that had used it, and they were trying to present this data, and their opinions on the matter were suppressed.
Like, I mean, even even as a liberal, I'll admit, like I was sitting there saying when people were like they shouldn't have it forced on 'em, I did agree with it. I'm like, because I'm a person that believes in bodily autonomy. Um, what I mean that whenever the conservatives did try to hijack the my body my choice thing, the whole pro-choice, pro-life issue, and
Mm-hmm.
say that. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm gonna believe in stuff like that, though, if I'm gonna believe in being pro-choice, they're right. I could care less if they take the vaccine, and if they want to take ivermectin and they want to take anything else that like new age folks think is going to cure instead, by all means, I believe they should have the right to.
yeah, and as left leaning as we are, we did say that all along that we don't agree that this should be forced upon people.
Right.
And yes, like maybe shutting down the schools as long as they did harm children's mental health being isolated like that. Yeah, we believe these things, in our opinion that a lot of people on our side might not necessarily agree with.
Right.
Sure.
And a lot do. A lot of people do agree with that.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of conservatives who actually are highly critical of people who did take the vaccine, um, as if there was something, like as if they did something wrong. And I don't agree with that either. I think if you want to take the vaccine, you should be allowed to take the vaccine without being criticized by your coworkers or your peers. And I think if you don't want to take the vaccine, you should have the same right.
Cool. We
Good,
agree.
good, good. This is
Yeah,
this is what we need. Good conversation. That's what we
sure, sure.
um although getting back to the first part of your book where did seem to be leading into this is gonna how to deprogram a liberal. The first part of the book you were talking about race riots. I assume that you were talking about the George Floyd things that were going on shortly after Floyd
Oh,
started.
I wasn't really referencing any specific protests or riots. So the stories that I told, a lot of, explanation. I learned when I was writing, I used to write ad copy. And one of the things that I learned is that when you're trying to explain something technical, it helps to tell a story. And at that point, what I was trying to explain were functions. And I'll recap what I said in the book to introduce the idea of functions is that, if an archaeologist holds a rock in his hand, that rock is physical evidence. Okay. If he takes a picture of the rock, he's performing a function on the rock. Most information that you acquire comes to you by way of these functions. Um, so, because most people will never have the opportunity to hold the rock in their hand. And so then I went on to an analysis of functions. And I chose to help explain my I came up with characteristics of functions, and then I came up with characteristics of causation assignments because what people do is they take the functions and then they organize that and extrapolate it into a causation assignment. So that rock that the archaeologist had, if it's shaped like an arrowhead, he's going to say, well, that's probably caused by somebody smashing it with another rock until it's shaped like an arrowhead. And so that's how it works. You start with functions, and you want reliable functions, you want valid functions, and then you take those valid functions and extrapolate them into causation assignments. Now, I decided I'd put together a fun little story about these two journalists. So fundamentally, okay, there were some riots in the story, but it wasn't really about that. The main characters of the story were these two journalists, um, and it was Timmy, the trustworthy journalist, and Danny, the deceptive journalist. And so I kind of use them as a tool to teach people, like, this is what a trustworthy person would do, and this is what a deceptive person would do. And it's important to figure out which one you're actually dealing with at any given time. And I did use protest as an example of that because that's a common topic.
Yeah, but you also said there was a line in the book that kind of got to me was feminists bragging about how many abortions they'd have. Now, does that really happen?
I,
Yeah, I've seen that on. I've seen pictures of that online. I've seen women holding up signs telling that they had a lot of abortions, how many abortions they had, and you know,
well,
I disagree with abortion. So, and I threw it in there. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, and that's fine. Like, if people believe, I mean, I'm pro-choice, but a feminist here, like, I haven't had any abortions. I don't know anyone who brags about having a bunch of abortions. And as far as stuff maybe online, could that be like maybe instigators that are trying to attack like the what
yeah, that would be
women
an
do with their
orchestrated function,
bodies?
which is what I dealt with in the book, and it could be. I mean, there could
Yeah.
be an orchestrated function. Um,
That
a lot
just
of
goes
protests
into
do
your
have
thing though,
orchestrated
maybe
functions.
like, like, because you do kind of talk about like what the media presents us with and how it's not like, then when you talk about like fallacy sufferers, like they're believing stuff, that kind of seems to me like something that could be construed and to look a certain way. And I'm not saying that the left doesn't do stuff like that
Yeah.
too,
Well,
but
right, yeah, you take the January 6th protests. It's now been proven that there were 250 federal agents in the crowd. There is video footage of protesters being led into the Capitol building by police officers. So Ashley Babbitt was actually led to the door where she was shot and killed by police officers. And just
well,
one more
no,
thing regarding
But
Ashley Babbitt, there were no protesters inside the chamber where Ashley Babbitt was crawling into, and the windows for the doors were broken from inside the chambers. You could clearly see that in the video footage.
but you're
Um,
also seeing the video footage that the police officers warned her several times to stop.
yeah, they told her, do not come in here. And then that's the same thing that the conservatives will always argue. If somebody breaks into my house, I'm shooting them. Like,
uh,
I don't
yeah,
feel
but I
sorry
mean,
for Ashley Babbitt.
when you
I'm
consider
sorry
the
that it's unfortunate, but she was warned.
why would they lead all those protesters up to these doors with these windows that they themselves, the police officers, in likely broke the windows? Somebody from inside the chamber who is not a
I didn't
protester
see that though.
broke the
There's the
window.
whole,
If you watch the
you
video
can
again, you can
watch
see it.
the
There was a meme
highlighted.
that was floating around. If you watch the video of where Ashley Babbitt was shot, you can see glass on the floor where the protesters were standing, and then you could see inside the window, you could see that there were no protesters on the other side. So
That's
whoever
because
broke the
there's
glass,
Congress people on the other side of that door trying to escape.
And
So I've
it
seen that footage.
and as far as I'm concerned
the,
with her, her own people killed her. She was only shot in the shoulder. She probably bled out
she was
because
shot in the neck.
people couldn't get in there to save her. Yeah, then you
She
bleed
was shot
out.
in the neck.
That's not what it says if you look it up online. It says that she was shot like in the shoulder or something. And it's
The
like,
video I saw, she got shot and she was holding her neck afterwards.
Okay. Like, so, I mean, we're not gonna, we're gonna have to just agree to disagree on that. But
Also, just one more
why do you think the government would do that? Why would the government break in a window and leave them upstairs?
because
yeah,
just like the
what?
same thing, the same reason that you think that someone would send someone with a sign that says I had 12 abortions to a liberal protest, you're trying to
Trump
discredit the
told him to go
protesters.
there. He said it'll be wild. He told them to go there. Then he got
The
mad that he
video
didn't
footage
get
that
to
the
march them.
BBC showed about Donald Trump, the speech that he gave, telling him to go there, that was selectively edited to make it look like it was worse than it was. And Donald Trump sued the BBC successfully over that.
I'll
That
have
was
to
an
look
edited
that up.
function. I deal with edited functions in my book. That video was later proven to be edited. Not only that, but the video footage of some of the video footage of the protesters entering the Capitol that day. They added sound to make it look like they were yelling and screaming.
But don't do you
Do you think the wiping of the shit all over the place in there, them taking dumps, do you think that's all fake too? Like,
Yeah, I don't really know about that, but there were definitely outside agitators. There were infiltrators in the crowd. So
okay?
they were.
it's anybody's guess. We still don't know who planted the bomb, the pipe bomb. Somehow that's being suppressed.
Well, I think they pressed charges against that person. If I'm remembering correctly, I'm not 100%.
Why
They
pardon
had some
them then?
suspects,
Why
but then
pardon all of them?
Well, the person that
Like-
had the pipe bomb did not get pardoned. I do know that.
they didn't get arrested or tried. There was a suspect. I don't think there was an actual trial.
Okay, can we agree that being a police officer with a flagpole is not right, though?
An American flag.
What are you talking about?
The
Beating a police officer
that
with an
were-
American flag. I mean, I guess I don't know exactly what footage you're referring to at that point.
There's that
There's just so many
video.
hours. There's so much footage on the
Yeah.
Jan 6. Um,
We
uh,
watched the one that there's several. Who put that video out? It shows.
There was an HBO documentary.
Yeah, they played the entire day because they had the entire.
Did you see the Tucker Carlson treatment of that on Fox News? He did a series on Fox News, and then the Democrats, Chuck Schumer was furious about it, and so Tucker Carlson did an excellent job on it, and then he was fired from Fox News shortly after that.
What are we doing? What are we doing here? What's going on? Sorry, we like to do the Tucker and Carlson impersonation.
Yeah. Also, I want to go back to another point that you made regarding the Ashley Babbitt when they said, well, who really killed her? If somebody shot her, but didn't she die from bleeding to death? And if she did, then isn't that the fault of the protesters because they couldn't get her at medical treatment? So I deal with this in my book that when you extrapolate functions into cause and effect assignments, there are often multiple causes. Okay. So, you might have, it's extremely rare that there would be only one cause and one effect associated with any function, like the rock in the archaeologist's hand. There are a lot of things that cause that rock to be shaped into an arrowhead. Okay. You could say that it was shaped into an arrowhead by somebody smashing it with another rock. You could say it was shaped into an arrowhead by the demands of their hunting practices, by their religion. You know what I mean? There are always multiple causes, but I think in this case, the idea of intent, the officer's intent was to harm Ashley Babbitt by shooting her. If the other protesters are even in any way responsible, their intent was not to harm Ashley Babbitt, and I think that's an important point to make. Is that if you want to assign blame, I'm assigning the blame to the guy that actually pulled out a gun and shot her, and not to the protesters who happened to be crowded around and it made it hard for an ambulance to get there.
So
it is unfortunate,
yeah,
that she was shot. I'm not saying that she deserved it. I'm saying I understand why it happened because they kept telling her not to come in there and then use lethal force. It is unfortunate. However, it's every time we've seen a video of an unarmed Black person being shot by the police, the right always says, if you would have just complied, why is this not the same treatment then? She had an officer.
Well,
the most unfortunate part of her getting shot was she believed the lies that a president who had concocted that the election was stolen from him because he's such a narcissist, he can't admit that he lost. So technically, yeah, he probably is the fault of her dying. I
Oh,
I changed my mind.
well, George Floyd was not shot by a police officer.
He wasn't
Uh,
shot at all. He was
he
choked.
wasn't shot by anybody.
He
He was
couldn't
He
choking.
died
breathe.
of an opioid overdose.
No, he
If somebody's on your
couldn't
neck
breathe.
for
He could. That's like you saying that they're saying that COVID deaths happen for people if they had COVID at the time that they got into a car accident. That
The
doesn't make
autopsy
sense.
showed that he had died of an opioid overdose. It wasn't his first opioid overdose either. He had had another opioid overdose in police custody sometime before that. So it was the same situation. He saw the police coming. He ate his opioids, and then he told them that he had eaten his opioids, and they got him medical treatment, and he did not die of an opioid overdose that time.
medical treatment's a knee on your neck.
If
No, no,
somebody
no. This
says
I'm
they
talking about a
can't
previous
breathe,
incident. I'm talking about not this incident. I'm
Okay.
talking about a previous incident
Okay.
that was very similar, and it was with George Floyd. So this was his second
that's not how he
time.
died, though. You still said he died of an opioid overdose. He died because he couldn't breathe. He had a knee on his
No,
neck.
the autopsy showed that he had died of an opioid overdose, and
No, it didn't.
the hold that the first autopsy showed that it died of an opioid overdose, and then the prosecution and the family of George Floyd ordered a second autopsy that showed different causes of death.
Where did
Okay.
you
Okay.
get
Okay.
this
Okay.
information from?
How
What?
how would somebody doing an autopsy be able to change it? Be like, you're right. It wasn't an overdose. It was strangulation or lack of air.
Yeah, I mean it was two different autopsies. The first autopsy showed high levels of opioids and concluded that he had died of an opioid overdose. The second autopsy was ordered by the prosecution and reached a different conclusion. Not only that, but in all fairness to Derek Chauvin, the hold that he put George Floyd in is in the police manual. That's a prescribed hold that has been deemed safe by the police department. There's an actual picture of it in his police manual. That's how they train officers to subdue people who are resisting arrest. And the body cam footage. I mean, you can't debate. The body cam footage clearly shows George Floyd was aggressively resisting arrest.
He
They,
was.
they put him in the cop
That's
car. He
not what I
crawled out of the
saw.
Yeah,
cop car.
this is a really interesting point because
I saw
we
him.
we consume many types of media and we did not see that.
I didn't see
You
that
didn't see
on
the
any of them,
full.
and I saw a smirk on Chauvin's face. Like when they get that smirk, it's the same one that George, what's his name, George Zimmerman. He said it on his 911 call, whispered it under his breath. They always get away with this shit, and he had that kind of smirk on his face. Now I'm not saying exactly because yeah, that's me. That's me jumping to conclusions or what you will, but like that's not what I got out of it. I never saw that.
So you didn't see the chest cam footage where George Floyd was placed in the back of the cop car by police officers, and then he crawled out of the back of the cop car on the other side, and they had to run around to the other side of the car and hold him down.
How did those doors not automatically lock? Every police car I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
and sometimes they do it. So that's not relevant to the argument of whether or not George Floyd was resisting arrest. George Floyd was resisting arrest. Just because they left the door unlocked doesn't mean that George Floyd was not resisting arrest. He
Resisting
was.
arrest based on that death sentence, though.
Right, yeah.
It's what?
The police officer does not get to be judge, jury, and executioner on that day, though.
But he
It
does get
should
to make
not.
an arrest.
He's allowed to make an arrest. He's
Right,
not allowed
and if
to
you're being
murder
arrested
somebody.
and you resist, then you're resisting arrest,
Hey,
and that is a crime. And they are
Well,
authorized to
he's
use a
in
certain amount
prison.
of reasonable force in a situation like that.
Well, he's in prison and he was tried before a jury of his peers, and they still think that he murdered him. So there's that. We'll go with
Sure.
what the court said.
Yeah, he definitely is in prison.
Because
But he
he's a
might get out.
murderer.
He might
Because
get
he's a
out.
murderer.
I think there's a very good chance that he's going to get out of prison.
He's a murderer. He can't be well, good luck to him because he can't be
Not every
pardoned
single
through a
person that's in
state
prison
crime.
really deserves to be there. I mean,
He does deserve to be there. He murdered someone. Like, isn't that
well,
like good luck to him when he goes before his maker? Then I like to say this to everyone who's ultra religious too. Good luck explaining yourself when you go before your judgment of God.
Right.
Good luck.
Again, this will be.
You're gonna need it.
This
He's
is
gonna need it.
this,
He's
this,
gonna need it.
this,
Not, I'm not directing this at you. I'm directing this at Mr. Chauvin.
this is
You're
another
gonna
area
need
we're
it.
going to agree to disagree on it. You talk about Shrem in your book. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Shrem. He was a character that's based on pride, flattery. He's a gifted communicator. It sounded
yeah.
a lot like Donald Trump.
It sounded exactly like Donald Trump.
I mean, you know, there was a story that was written in the Book of Mormon. Um, to me, it doesn't sound like Donald Trump. Uh, I didn't really have a specific figure in mind when I talked about that story. Everything that I talked about with regarding the Book of Mormon was a way to demonstrate various points that I had made previously in the book, particularly regarding objectives, um, primary objectives, prerequisite objectives, and things like that. So, you know, if your takeaway, and I'll tell you what, there are a lot of Mormons who have the same takeaway as you. That there, you'd be surprised. I know that Mormons are often thought of as just ultra conservative, but you'd be surprised how many liberal Mormons are out there. And yeah, a lot of them probably do view that character as a Trump-like character. I personally do not.
I like a lot of more. There's a lot of Mormons who are very nice people. Like I
Sure.
don't have a. The only thing that is troubling about Mormonism to me is probably specifically the FLDS branch of it, like the
Yeah,
stuff that
those
has to
are.
do with Warren Jeffs and the new one. I think his name is Moroni. There just was another cult documentary released about him. He kind of took over after Warren Jeffs went to prison, and he then started the child rape. He furthered it
Sure.
along.
Well, there's
That's
not really much that the mainstream Church of Jesus Christ of Latter day Saints can do. Like they break off, they form their own church, and then eventually, once they start to actually violate the law, it's really the government that has to step in and say, no, you can't do that. You know,
yeah, exactly.
but the church is kind of, really just all they can do is try to convince people not to go in that direction.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that direction. I mean, it happens in all religions too. I was raised Catholic, and
It happens
I was
in
pretty much
places that are
out
not
when the stuff
religious.
came out about the altar boys. I'm like that. I'm not okay with this. These priests need to be turned over to the authority. They need to go to prison.
Yeah, I was living in Boston at the time while that was going down. So
I mean, it happens in places that are not religious as well. I mean, there are people who are not religious at all that have that same issue, and
Oh, definitely.
so I think
It's not
it's
just religious specific. Like I've always questioned like why they are so intertwined, because it's like if you watch any cult documentary on any of the religions, um the extreme versions of them, it's always has that element of
yeah.
the
There's always some type of
pedophilia in it. I don't understand it. I mean,
sure,
I don't know if any of us will ever understand it though,
yeah. Okay, let's lead to this point. You're a religious man. Um,
sure,
Snow and I aren't so much agnostic. We don't know. We just don't know. I was raised Catholic too, and I had a situation in my family with stuff that happened with the church that turned me off to organized religion. That's why I'm not how I feel that way I feel. But
Mhm.
being that, don't you think like Jesus's teachings first and foremost they are kind of very liberal-ish. Like, look at
Uh,
love thy neighbor on it.
Welcome the stranger. He's
Conservatives
against
love
the
their
death
neighbors.
penalty.
No, we're not saying that they don't.
No, yeah. Like
Sure.
we're just saying like I think that the most important thing from the Bible specifically is probably the Sermon on the Mount. I think that that's like the greatest of Jesus's teachings. I think that's why he did it, said it for a reason, and you know, show told everybody what the most important things were. Like, even though I'm not necessarily religious, I believe that there's good moral teaching in it. But
Sure. Well, I guess the golden rule was to love, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but it was to love the Lord God with all your heart and all your soul, and to love your neighbor as yourself. And,
right.
Yeah.
I maybe we disagree on how that should be applied. But Jesus also said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar, and give unto God what is God's. You have to obey the law.
Yeah, so specifically kind of like getting back a little, because there's been a lot of talk about COVID. Like when that all happened, and me maybe from my upbringing about like love your neighbor as thyself, I was like, I wish people would listen to these things just so we're keeping people safe, because I think that if we were doing I don't think that like having mask mandates, or like, okay, not necessarily the vaccine mandates, because there's already religions who don't believe in vaccines to at all anyways, like the other vaccines, they don't really believe in modern medicine. But like just the aspect of like, that's how kind of how I thought. Like I was like, I had no problem masking up because I knew that I was probably pretty healthy. I'm a healthy person, but I didn't want to be the cause of someone else getting sick or worse. Like,
Mhm.
because I love my neighbor.
All right.
Like,
I mean, sure, like I got to tell you, I didn't agree with the mask mandates or the social distancing, but I went along with it because like you said, it's not going to hurt me to wear a mask or to social distance. But with regards to the vaccine, I said I just adamantly oppose that because that is going to hurt me. And I think that a lot of conservatives and the approach that they took to all of that, they were trying to love their neighbor as themselves. And they didn't want to see, people getting vaccinated with dangerous vaccines that, I mean, I still believe to be dangerous. So, like, in a lot of ways, I was trying to protect people. And, I think a lot of, there was a lot going on besides that, like the use of ventilators. There were a lot of patients that came into the hospital and they were hooked up to ventilators. Um, and in many cases, ventilators could actually be harmful to certain people in certain situations, and that can convince
oh,
that ventilators are being used responsibly.
well, we personally know a friend that was part of our community who was only in his 50s, got COVID, went in the hospital, had to be placed on a ventilator, started doing a little bit better. So they took him off the ventilator and he died. So
Yeah,
he died from COVID. Like I mean, I don't think COVID is just a simple answer. I don't think
I don't
any of
think that.
them are. Like, I
I,
think that, but I do agree with you. I mean, I agree that if people really believe in their heart of hearts that the vaccine is bad or whatnot, then I don't believe that they should be forced to take it. And I really don't think that anyone was. No one where I worked, we had idiots that ended up quitting, and I'm like higher ups in the company.
where did you work
Like,
at the
quit.
time?
We can't really talk
Well,
about
I don't want to say
Okay,
I worked
do
for a
you-
big, well-known company, but it's like they
sure.
They never they never forced us to get the vaccines though. This idiot was so like, I
He
shouldn't
never, so he quit
call him
even though he
that
wasn't being
either.
forced to get vaccinated.
No, he was not going to get forced to get vaccinated. He left before because he's like, I don't want to get forced to get vaccinated.
Yeah,
Like it
I
was,
wouldn't have done
it
that.
it was like that much of, and it's like we never got forced. I did this by my choice. Like I did this long before they even started talking because we had the opportunity to get the vaccine. It was not being forced upon anyone at the time. It was specifically, by choice. And somebody had reached out on Facebook and was like, look, a lot of the people here don't want it, so they don't want to let it go bad, and they're wanting to know if anybody, the people who have already wanted it, came and got it. If you It was the school district. They were trying to protect like vulnerable people who are going to be working, obviously teachers work with children and whatnot. So those are who got vaccinated first. And they were like, everyone who wanted to come and get it then has got theirs. So we have all these vaccines left because they came up in the hopes to get more people vaccinated. But I mean, I get it. People are opposed to it, which I am grateful for. I will always be grateful that I was able to hop the line, so to speak, because we were in the category where we would have had to continue to wait. We don't fall under the senior citizen category. So I was like, all right, if they don't want it, I'll take theirs, you know?
Sure,
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. Can we ask you a few quick questions on it?
sure.
What's your stance? Have the Mormons changed their stance on the LGBT plus community at all? I know like Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons was Mormon and he was a big advocate for that community.
So I know that there's Elder Holland, who is a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles. He made a statement a few years back that, it got a lot of backlash. And his statement was that, we see the lifestyle is sinful, but it's important not to judge people too harshly. And we love everybody, including all the members of the LGBTQ community. Um, but it's still a sinful lifestyle. In the same, I mean, in my experience, in the way that I've known other Mormons to deal with it, it gets treated almost like, premarital heterosexual intercourse. Okay, it's a sin, but it's not that bad of a sin. And I think that what's important is that your judgments will be judged. Okay, so what's really important is to not judge people too harshly just because you think they're committing a sin. And that's, as far as I know, everything I've known, everything I've heard from any higher ranking member of the church, like in the Quorum of the 12 Apostles or something like that, it's all been along those lines. And that seems to be the way that I see most Mormons treating it, although that's not true of everybody. Everywhere you go, there's going to be people who don't really follow the scripture, and they judge harshly in a situation where they shouldn't judge so harshly.
Okay, okay, fair. Would you consider Snow and I fallacy sufferers?
Based on the conversation that I've had, um, I don't think you're such fallacy sufferers. The truth is, everybody harbors fallacies. But I will say this. Okay, one of the things you might have read in my book, when I started to go into the step by step process, I said you should always use these techniques on yourself. Okay, because even if you think you're not a fallacy sufferer, how do you know you're not a fallacy sufferer? And I talked about the analogy of a lot of people, they want to see the splinter in other people's eyes and they fail to see the log in their own eyes. That Jesus gave us that analogy. So I mean, whether or not you're fallacy sufferers, I got to tell you, I definitely disagree with you on a few key points. But even if you weren't fallacy sufferers, I would recommend that you go through the steps just to help yourself develop a healthier relationship with the truth. And look, it can't hurt. You read the steps, okay? Do they sound harmful to you?
No.
No. Well, what I kind of got out of the book, what I was trying to, because I'm like, I don't, I don't think it ever talks specifically about deprogramming a liberal, other than the fact that you used a lot of scripture. So do you just believe that religion is the way to deprogram? Do you see do you see liberals as basically atheist, and they because I mean
No,
they're
not at all.
okay. Like,
There are a lot of religious people who are liberals.
yeah, because there's conservatives who are atheists too. I mean, I know,
There are.
and so
Uh,
that's why I didn't, because the book is heavily has to do with scripture, mainly the Book of Mormon. Like you cite all I don't
I
have a
cite the New
problem with.
Testament as well. So if you
Yeah.
look at those steps that I present, so when I talk about a step by step process, I give you step one, step two, step three, step four. Those steps are extrapolated from the New Testament. Okay. After that, I get into the Book of Mormon. But those
Okay.
steps,
Yeah.
and I was very clear, I think everybody should go through those steps, whether you consider yourself a liberal or a conservative. And the steps are not unreasonable at all. It's just doing little things to help develop a better relationship with uncertainty. And the things that it recommends are easy, you know?
Okay.
Right. I think that and this is just my opinion, but like maybe you should talk about the steps more rather than focusing on the, because it
Well,
doesn't seem like the
it is
steps were talked about that
it
much.
is a catchy title for a book, though.
Right.
That was
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Well,
that's what I thought. I'm
this is
like,
a,
but is that kind of your thing though? Like you feel that the way to deprogram people is to like use good old fashioned religion. Is that basically the gist
it
of
depends
it?
on the approach you take to religion. What I'm doing is I'm trying to extrapolate solutions from scripture. And I think that's a good way to do that. Of course, there are a lot of people who extrapolate problems from scripture and they make things
Okay.
worse. So it really depends on the way you apply scripture. I think there is a lot of value in it, though.
okay. Well,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of value in the Sermon on the Mount.
yeah.
I will always agree with that. I'm like, especially
Is
the
that
one
where the
about
Beatitudes came out? Was it in the Sermon on the Mount?
the Sermon on the Mount is in Matthew, and it's when Jesus goes and talks about his greatest commandments, that above like all this, these are the greatest teachings that I
Uh huh.
will tell you. And he talks about, you will, as you have done for me, you have welcomed me, like, and welcoming the stranger. And then, because then even the apostles, don't they like argue with him a little, and they're like, well, how are we supposed to do this kind of like thing? And then they're like, uh what you have done for me, you have done for everyone else. Like that's what you should do. Like that was the whole point of it. Like
Uh huh. Yeah, I
like
don't
that's
remember
what it
all the
says, the
details of
greatest
the
woman
Sermon
to
on the
love thy
Mount,
neighbor.
and sometimes I get confused as to when he said what. You know what I mean? Like I don't know if the Beatitudes were in the Sermon on the Mount, but I do mention the Beatitudes in my book. And
Oh, it is. Yeah, it is in Matthew. I know for a fact that the Sermon on the Mount is in Matthew.
yeah, I
And
don't
he
remember
and
if
he
the
talks
Beatitudes
about
were in the Sermon on the Mount, though. Um,
the thing that I like the best probably about the Sermon on the Mount is like the privacy aspect of it. Like you shouldn't be making a spectacle when you're talking about your religion and praying. Like your praying is supposed to be a private thing between like you and your God. You're supposed to like
mhm,
basically go into your closet and talk to your God versus
yeah,
trying to get, I don't know, credit. That's why I have a problem with like the TV evangelists. Like it's like you're not supposed to be doing this according to the
sure.
Sermon on the Mount.
Well,
Well, I'm not an evangelical, so I'm not
Yeah,
going to
no,
defend
no, I know.
it.
I'm saying there's all right, but there's all aspects. I mean, there's Catholics that do that. There's people who just consider themselves Christians that do that. There's
Sure,
Mormons that do that. I mean, that's why I'm saying I'm like I I don't have a problem with what anyone believes. I believe, but I also believe it should be private. Like it should
sure,
be a personal thing. Why wouldn't your stuff that is with your God, that should be personal? I mean, I
sure.
you know.
Well, we want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
You know, I think it was a person really brave of you because I think you went in knowing that we would not.
Did you know we were liberals when you first
I
talked
knew
to
before I
us?
scheduled. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I checked all your profiles. I checked your YouTube page, and I could see that you were liberals. But so what?
Well,
I'll do it anyway.
it was, and I think that this is what we need is more conversation between both sides.
Yeah,
Try
we
to
need
reach
to
common.
talk to the other side. Like we're
Sure.
fine with it. Like
Mhm.
I'm not I don't want to be a fraidy cat. And I just went to a Republican thing last night, like here in our local town. Like they had the guy who's running against our current governor come to try it. And it was a Republican event, but I'm like, I'm here to listen. Like, am I
Sure.
welcome or not? You know?
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, well, Charles, thank you very much. And where can people find your book?
It's available on Amazon. It's called Deprogram Any Liberal. It could also there's a website, lieshield.com, and that's words are spelled correctly, lie and shield, and then .com. So they can visit that. Maybe you can put a link somewhere, if you don't mind, like in the
Okay, sure.
description.
Sure. No,
Yeah.
I will put that in the episode description.
Okay. All right. Well,
All
thanks
right,
for
thank
having
you
me,
very
guys.
much.